This is the 4th of July special. Lydia and Spin, Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl. In a couple of minutes, Acid King of San Francisco, Mark McCloud. Tim.
Yes.
I know you love holidays, and I know you love the 4th of July. So what exactly are you doing on the 4th of July?
Well, usually, and it's almost embarrassing to admit, I have a tradition of waking up hungover and getting on the subway, the Q train, going down to Coney Island to see the annual Nathan's hot dog eating contest, which is not for everyone, both as spectators or participants.
By the way, Tim, I hate hot dogs.
I know you do. You hate hot dogs and movie popcorn.
And the smell of a hot dog makes my cheeks quiver like a squirrel because I think I'm going to puke.
Well, okay, fair enough. The hot dog eating contest is not for people like you or me. Well, definitely not you. It's the best of the best in the world who can consume the most amount of hot dogs with the bun.
In other words, disgusting food to the max.
Within 10 minutes. So I'm going to try to make it quickly. So basically, there's about 20 people on stage. There's actually a man and a woman's competition.
Do you have a favorite?
My favorite is, characters. Kobayashi, the Japanese legend, and of course Joey Chestnut, the current champion. There's qualifying rounds around the country, or I think around the world.
What is the most hot dogs ever consumed?
I think it's like 74 in 10 minutes with a bun.
You are really disturbing me
It's disgusting.
Now. Okay, after the fucking hot dog eating incident.
So this year we're not doing any of that because of COVID and.
Well, they can't eat hot dogs by Zoom.
Well, I think they're going to simulcast it this year. I'm not going there this year. So my tradition is to go there, then go to the Brighton Beach, drink some beers, go back and grill.
Grill what?
Usually burgers. Maybe I'll have some steaks, some chicken.
I heard you made ribs the other day, and I was not invited.
Well, there's future rib.
We can't share every meal.
Smorgasbord. All right, so usually I do that, and then I drink, and maybe enjoy some other things.
All right. What's interesting about this 4th of July is there have been fireworks going off in New York City and other cities for about a month now. Now, part of why there are so many fireworks here, because they're illegal in the state of New York, they are not illegal in Pennsylvania, a Liberty Bell,
right,
is because it's kind of a street economy. So you might buy a big box of fireworks for $50. You might sell it to the next guy for $100. It's understandable. And they are going off nonstop. And as a matter of fact, there was a protest in front of de Blasio's house because people were getting no sleep. So they drove their cars up there and started honking because we can't sleep. Why should you sleep? And it's not going to stop. I want to tell you about my feelings a little bit about the 4th of July.
Okay,
first of all, the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776. And basically what that was that American colonies were breaking free from British rule. Yet, in the Constitution, and by the way, most of the people that wrote the Constitution were slaveholders. 13 American presidents were. The Constitution barred the federal government from prohibiting the importation of slaves for 20 years. Okay. Thomas Jefferson owned 600 slaves. He got his first slave at the age of 11. Now, this is what's written in the Declaration of Independence. Just a quick quote. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men, I'd like to interrupt. That doesn't mean black men, men of other colors or women, are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That, and this is very important, whenever any form of government, in other words, the one we have now, becomes destructive of these ends, which it has for 3.5 years, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government. That's part of what the 4th of July means to me. And if you think fireworks they're always going off in my house.
Oh, yes. Well,
Now, what's for dinner on 4th of July, Tim? Sorry, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
This year could be, we'll decide, close. Unfortunately, I have incredible Italian markets in Bensonhurst, and there's a lot of options.
We're going to grill an Italian? Hey, I'm a Sicilian. What's wrong with me? You want to grill me?
Well, yes.
Come on. There's plenty to... My name isn't lunch for nothing. There's plenty to eat. Hey.
Often I also played the Charles Ives 4th of July Symphony, which is...
I thought you were going to say the ukulele.
No, not at all.
I've never seen you do that, but there's always time.
Yes. So let's keep on going on with this American Constitution, 4th of July, independence. It's interesting. Here we are. We're in America now, we actually
we're in America now.
We enjoy criticizing it, but maybe playing devil's advocate a little bit, I mean, the amount of blood we're all standing on, particularly in the industrialized world, I mean, every cent that is spent, there's blood on it. So at what point do you try to like come to terms with it? What do you do about it? And so obviously America's a work in progress, and maybe it's maybe it's a failed one. Maybe it's a failed one.
Yet. And you know what? They haven't gotten it right yet. Now let's just talk about the coming 4th of July, or actually the 3rd of July, that the Cheeto King is now staging in all of his absolutely horrific. He can't even hide the fact that he's a white supremacist. And after all, I guess if your father was arrested as part of the KKK in 1927, Trump.
That retweet yesterday, the white power one. What was?
All right. Well, look, he's holding his rally at Mount Rushmore. Let me break down what Mount Rushmore is to you. Okay. First of all, Mount Rushmore was designed by Gutzon Borgen. He was a powerful wizard in the KKK. Now, the land that Mount Rushmore is carved out of is built on sacred Sioux land in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And it was land that was granted in perpetuity to the Lakota tribes. That is, until gold was discovered. Thank you, motherfucking Custer. Now, needless to say, massacres follow. And also, I mean, who's on Mount Rushmore, Tim? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson,
Teddy Roosevelt,
and Lincoln. 3
out
out of 4 slaveholders. And it was Lincoln, that bastion of liberty for people, who actually murdered a whole tribe of Lakota Indians right at the foot of Mount.
Was Teddy Roosevelt a slave owner?
No, he wasn't. I said 3 out of 4. I want to go on with this. You know, the town that I'm from, there were a lot of radicals that for some reason ended up in Rochester. The Underground Railroad went there. Emma Goldman lived there for a while. Sal Alinsky wrote rules for radicals. But Frederick Douglass, who was an incredibly articulate man who was born into slavery and broke free. Actually, somebody that he was passed to a family when he was 11 that taught him how to read, and he became just an incredible speechmaker and writer and abolitionist, and helped to run the Underground Railroad in Rochester. And he gave a speech in July of 1852 to the Rochester's Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. You see, it's in my blood, people. And I just want to quote what he said. "What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is still the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery, your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgiving, with all your religious parades and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace any nation. There is not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this hour." Now that's 1852. And where is the difference now? Tim Dahl, tell me. Where is the difference now when the Cheeto King is going to have a rally at Mount Rushmore?
Well, you know, the one that blew me away, and I always repeat, and of course the population's bigger, it's a kind of a complicated stat, but the fact that there are more African Americans incarcerated today than there were slaves in the peak of slavery, you know, that's a real bummer, right? I mean,
well, look, in the days of slavery, there were actually 22 crimes that black men could be incarcerated or killed for, and 2 in the same list that if white men were guilty of it, they would have the same fate. Let's just face it, slavery has not been abolished in this country. We know who suffers it worse than us, the privileged white to some degree. But slavery in these modern days is not only the disrespect they've continually paid to indigenous people, to blacks, to Hispanics, to any, and this is a country of fucking immigrants, let's not forget it. But the fact that at $15 an hour, which in some states is high, low wage, it's slave labor wages. I don't have to go on with my prison speeches. We already know how many people are incarcerated. How many people have been, just go listen to the protest podcast.
Well, this is where we are right now. If you're making 6 figures in America, you have more in common with a homeless person than you do with the billionaires. So that's where we're at right now. Everything's really on edge. And what did I hear that the top 5 wealthy people in America made 3 times the amount of the total sum of what all the governors are asking for? in these last couple months. I mean, shouldn't they be fucking paying this?
I mean,
because it would be going back to them anyways. Everyone's getting shit from Amazon, so it would just be just
every
going back to them
person,
anyways.
350 million people in this country, everybody could get $1 million from one of these billionaires, tax write-off, and they would just put that back into the economy. That would really eliminate most poverty. So I say, vote for lunch. Ha ha, I don't run for office. I'm running away for office. Now, let's get to the real issue of this 4th of July.
Yes.
Actually, it's going to be the 3rd of July or maybe the 2nd of July telecast. Mark McCloud, one of the freest minds I've ever met in my life, a psychonaut of the highest degree, the acid king of San Francisco.
We had just arrived in San Francisco because we were doing a retrovirus tour going into Australia, and we did the West Coast as well. And COVID actually, San Francisco was one of the first places hit. So it was actually floating there. That was not the European strain that was there. It was the Chinese one, but there we were.
We survived.
Had arrived. We had just played. And you've known Mark for a while.
I've known Mark McCloud since the early 80s.
And so then Simon and I don't know if Weasel had met him before, but just walking in, being greeted by his butler.
Almost every band that passed through San Francisco has stayed at the McCloud, I wouldn't call it a mansion, but in the Mission. Almost everybody has stayed there. I have many times. But this was my favorite moment in the setting up of our podcast with Mark McCloud. You know, his home is just full of artwork. It's incredible. He knows where everything is. But as our producer, Simon Slater, was bending over to plug in our instrumentation, there was this giant, I can only describe it as a giant copper molecule that looked to weigh 300 pounds. And Mark McCloud, in the middle of a sentence, I saw the look of horror. Weasel saw the look of horror. Mark McCloud jumped up. Weasel caught what would have been Simon Slater's death by a 300-pound copper molecule piece of art saved by Weasel this time.
Well, you know, it's always amazing when someone is deep in this psychedelic zone, which Mark clearly is, and then basically when they just come to just hyper-present observation of like the physical reality of, well, a heavy object about to crush a person.
And LSD really can make your focus acute, sometimes too acute.
Oh,
but I mean,
absolutely.
look, it is one of the most misunderstood drugs. It is one of the most healing drugs. And also, actually, right after this time, Weasel was reading this incredible article about overdosing on LSD, which people can do, but then it can correct some different discombobulations within the brain.
Mark addresses that.
I'm sure he does.
In the interview. So this was, I think we did this towards the end of February, and it was basically right before the lockdown.
So here we are. It's the Lydia and Spin with Lydia at lunch, Tim Dahl, and our special guest, Mark McCloud. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. I'm very happy to be in San Francisco's Mission District with Mark McCloud, an expert on counterculture,
It's true.
acid, philosophy,
It's all true if you like science fiction.
Oh, boy.
and science fiction, because his life has kind of been beyond the beyond, shall we say.
Yeah, truly.
If people could even see this room right now, we're going to take some pictures, but it's just walking in, there's already a lot of stuff here.
So many intersecting realities here. We'll never decide what we're sharing.
Mark, I've been here
Decide.
many times in the past, not enough recently. I was trying to remember the first time I came here or how we even met.
I remember the first time we met because we met through Sally Mutant. And
Okay.
it was at a sculpture show I was doing on Mission Street at a National Endowment funded space. And the show was called Room for Doubt. And you showed up with Sally, and I had done this big kind of like throne thing that you sat on immediately. And that's when I first noticed your fine ass.
Well,
All right.
even though I was sitting on it, you could tell how nice it
And
was.
I think I told you right out that, it was made for your ass, that throne.
I feel that most people's faces are made for my ass, but
Right.
call it as you see it.
Right. And,
What year was that?
Gosh, I'm really bad with years, as you know. When you're driving the time machine, they just flit by.
early 80s.
Yeah,
maybe.
we could tell from the show.
Okay, we'll have to go back.
Show
We're
Room
gonna-
from Down.
Well,
I remember the curator's name was Amanda Speed Queen.
Well, that is
that's a detail, yeah.
conversation
You really
starter.
wanted that promoting your art back in 84 or 83.
Well, many people have passed through these sacred portals here, and you've housed so many people too over the years. I mean, how long have you actually been in this museum?
83, I showed up. Yeah.
Okay. You showed up from where?
I showed up from 17th Street where I had secured a really nice space called American Zoetrope. And it was Francis Ford's first American Zoetrope. And he had made a movie and cleaned up and moved on to a bigger studio and given me a really good break on the rest of his lease, which was about 5 years. So I did from like 77 to 82 there. And as I was getting expelled, I found this squat, the last squat in San Francisco, with the help of a Ronnie Reagan National Endowment for the Arts grant.
Whoa.
Given to me. It was my second grant, but it was larger, and it was given to me just at the right time
What was it given to you for?
for my artwork, which was a large abstract sculptures at the time.
Was it something you had to apply for, or was it just given to you?
I had applied every year.
Okay.
And I had gotten a little one from Jimmy Carter, the only president I loved, for giving me
The
for
only one that-
invading the draft.
The only one that publicly believes in UFOs.
Well, that's not by accident, I'm sure. Seeing is believing. And, he forgave us all. I got to come back from Paris where I lived because I evaded the draft. I didn't want to die for no Church of Satan.
There you go.
Nixon took away my student deferment, and I had a really low number, so I didn't register. We had a 50% chance of getting away then.
So you took the gamble and you got away.
Right.
Paris,
And I got to watch Nixon fall
from France.
from France.
Well,
but I
wait,
snuck in a couple of times.
The sister city, Paris is the sister city to San Francisco.
For sure, and that underground still works there.
What did you do when you went to Paris?
I immediately signed up to École du Louvre, the museum school. The tuition was $20 a year.
Wow.
And I bet it's gone down now. And that lets you access to any school and museum with that credential. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I came back to California to get my master's degree at UC Davis
In what?
in the fine arts. And I started off as a photographer, but I left there as a sculptor.
So let's talk about your beginning. You weren't born here. You were born in Argentina?
No, I was fortunate. I was born in the best place on earth.
What's that?
Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, all right. Well,
I'm an early model of the 50s. You could have any color you want as long as they're black.
Yeah.
And then we were bulbous and slow, And I was born there, but my mom was an American Cherokee girl from Oklahoma and didn't want to have me in Argentina. And I was also cesarean, which complicated things. So then I was born in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which was just a good medical
Facility.
how did it complicate things? How did that complicate things?
It made it possible for me to be born on ergotamine tartrate, which was given to my mom to induce parting. And most of us, 50 models, were born on acid.
Okay.
And,
That could explain a few things.
and that made sure the doctor could get to the golf game on time. Nothing like a little bump of ergotamine tartrate if you want to drop the load.
All right. Okay, so you're in Detroit, I think, and
At one point.
yes, and then there's
When I arrived, torn from my mom's womb and
Oh, yeah.
immediately had my peenie whacked.
well, cesarean.
Welcome to Sing Sing,
I
lover
have
boy.
to ask. Other than the one you personally experienced, have you
It's been pretty much like that since I showed up.
seen a cesarean section other than the one
Oh,
you
boy.
came out of?
Many.
They're
But
frightening.
I was pre-med before my accident.
I mean, this is barbaric, actually,
It's-
because let me just
oh,
explain
God.
what a C-section is. They cut a smiley face in your belly, then they pull your uterus out and remove the baby. Then they put it back in and sew you up. women do not impregnate.
Well, and they're also they're very common in the States for many reasons. But
Quicker.
here's the upside. Cesarean babies you have a chance to be a baby model at that point because they have the roundest heads.
Yeah,
It's true.
the snippers don't usually
I swear last night I saw somebody who looked like he had one side of his head caved in.
Might have.
And I couldn't get that image out of my mind all day. I even asked Weasel,
Oh,
who was
God.
that guy that looked like he had one?
No, but
He's like, I don't know who
cesarean
you're
guys
talking
are
about.
always looking for, that way back. You know?
Oh, they want to get
Most
back.
guys are.
And
Come
so
on.
Then it's a problem.
And what's the bond with the mom and the cesarean?
If you're circumcised and a cesarean,
Oh, boy.
then you're like really in trouble.
Yeah. Well, abandonment issues mixed with rage.
You're looking for a ticket before you can go back in.
Oh boy. Well, there's only basically 4 or 5 countries in the industrialized world that do mass circumcision.
Well, I hear
being
that it's
one.
illegal to do it in Iceland.
Does
now.
anyone really miss their dick cheese?
Well, yeah.
I'm sure we
I
can find
don't.
someone.
Yeah, exactly. We have like the song Reunited.
With this richer group, we can find someone for sure.
Get a deep fryer, we have some calamari,
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for anybody that doesn't have to stick those things in their mouths every now and then to say, tasty.
I wonder how Iceland feels about Jews now that it's illegal to,
Oh, well.
wow.
Well, the Scandinavians.
But you can leave the town to get circumcised, I guess, and then come back.
I'm pro vasectomy. Circumcision. That's beside the point. I don't understand how rabbis can get away with sucking small boys' penises.
Well, that's in the Hasidic human. Well, because like
Consider the alternative.
well, like 2-month-olds were getting fucking herpes, and so that's how that whole shit got exposed. But let's move on from this. All right. So
I don't see why.
Detroit. Okay, but you're getting at it.
Detroit. And I'm sure Louis Ferdinand Celine used my crib before I did.
Okay. All right. Well.
Journey to the end of somebody's night. I'm not
No,
sure.
he did a little stint there with the Ford Motor Company, I know. He did.
We're going sideways.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Right.
Upside down.
Yeah, it's in the book.
So, Celine.
Celine gets out of the island. He does actually do a little stint in Detroit, working for the Ford Motor Company.
Unbelievable.
On the assembly line.
It's one of the most.
I had no idea.
Two of the most amazing books ever written, actually, and a lot of people just haven't applied the time to do it.
Oh,
You've read it or you haven't.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Right.
It's I love a run-on sentence.
A lot of good things are from Detroit.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, what year were you in Detroit till?
I just left right away. I didn't hang out there.
What's right away? How old are you?
I didn't see. I was back in BA by 54, but I was born in 53, tail end of 53, same day as Crazy Horse. Then I went back to Argentina where, everything was looser.
Yeah. And how long did you live in Argentina?
I live there still. I still have a place
Oh,
there.
beautiful. In Buenos Aires.
No, in the Patagonia
Oh,
now.
incredible.
Yeah, it's very nice. And my brothers and I have maintained our...
How often do you get there?
Not often enough. But
Okay.
I try to... if the feds ain't holding my passport every year.
What a fucking pain in the ass.
Fishing season.
So is harassment a...
Not a problem
Not a problem.
for a professional like me.
well...
And that's maybe why you wisely became a professional.
Well,
professional what, may I ask?
Leave it to the professionals.
Well,
Leave it to the
I'm
professor.
sitting next to two because here's another stealth bomber to my left, Lydia.
Hey, keep that to yourself.
They're really scary, but once you've had your ass looked up a few times, you get used to it.
Oh, boy.
In fact, the boys bought me a glass eye that matched mine, a Civil War model. And it was very beautiful, and so I wore it in once, and so
You wore the glass eye in your ass eye.
And we're on a first name basis. And,
Cyclops.
as I leave the feds, I always have one goodbye, and it's Barnum and Bailey.
And how do they respond to
When
that?
did you first?
Their noses turn real red.
I think they start out red. Well, when did your harassment originally begin?
Nah, it's not really a harassment.
But have you avoided?
Every snitch that they torture knows my name. It's like Spartacus, in the snitch game, you know? So if you need to snitch someone out, use me.
I'll remember that, but I would never do that to you, my friend.
Yeah, my last trial had 13 snitches I'd never met, but that's
What?
how bad the torture is. They could talk 13 fools in the name of
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, torture. Yeah, Alan Durslow's torture really works.
The
Yeah.
oldest was doing 28 years, and he had a fucking FBI agent father. And you do the math. You don't really need to be a rocket scientist
28
to
years.
see what happened.
This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Mark McCloud, the Acid King of San Francisco. We're sitting in the Acid Museum,
Not a king, just another sailor.
the Sailor King of San Francisco, in his Acid Museum. Tell us a little about how you first became involved in not only the accumulation, but the understanding of that fine substance called LSD.
Well, I always was into small, finely made things. And my mom taught me how to really notice detail. And I really liked things close up. I had an ant farm, and I kept things pretty much around the focus point, around the smudge of my head. You know, your head leaves a little grease smudge on things. And I kind of left it at that. If I looked beyond that, it got gnarly where I was, which was Buenos Aires in the 50s.
So you closed it
They'd
in.
forgotten how to make children's toys and all that. You know, it was too close to the war. So the only thing they made is these little pogs you could collect. And if you fill the magazine full of the pogs, you'd win the bicycle, which was a way out of town, I guess.
Did you win it? Did you win it?
No, I had to win much more than a bicycle to get out of town. But I did collect. And, of course, the themes were all twisted. Like, I remember collecting weaponry of the Second World War, German weaponry.
Another reason I love you.
The hardest one to get was the submarine, of course. The U-boat. They only made like 2-3 of those, you know.
All right.
We gambled with the rest of them, and we line up in front of the wall, and we put the pogs between our fingers, and we'd shoot the pog to the wall, and whoever got their pog closest to the wall got the whole pile.
And how often did you get the whole pile?
That's it. Many times I got the whole pile.
Nice.
The other way, if you weren't a shooter, you could drop it from the wall. And that was the...
Oh, was that cheating or was
No,
that?
it was just another
special
method.
technique. Yeah.
Technique.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't matter how you got that puppy close to the wall, but the closest one got the kitty.
Yes. So you got the pile.
A pile of pogs in great detail filling this album, trying to get my ass out of town.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And so there's still a
Then I line it all up. I figured First Communion, right?
Oh, boy.
Boom, and I'd tell the guy everything, you know.
And how did that work
They don't
out?
have a box like they do here where you talk to the guy from outside of a box.
Right.
No, you kneel in front of the priest who's kneeling.
Yeah. Wait, was this
And then he
fly
hugs
open?
you, and you hug him, and
God.
you whisper into his ear, and he's on you like a fucking...
Of course he is. That's why they're called priests.
Detector,
Yes.
he's on you like a lie detector.
Yeah, well,
He
he's
knows
trying to
every little-
smell if you have guilt or not.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but not one single person my whole career tried
Ever
to diddle
tried to-
me.
I mean,
I don't know.
Did you
maybe
ever try to
it's
diddle
a
them?
hormonal thing or something.
Maybe you should have diddled them.
But no. What I did is I'd went through the whole process. I wanted to meet the maker and wanted to, hear and see everything. And so I told him the whole 9 yards. And then the day before our first communion, the priest said, "Are there any questions?" And of course he meant, do we show up?
Yeah.
Can we leave our car in the parking lot while we take the first communion here? No, but my question was, hey, man, can the man make some rock that's so fucking heavy he can't pick it up, And the guy wouldn't even answer me. He said, "See you tomorrow." And so I showed up already knowing something was kind of funky. The fix was in.
Somebody's not telling the
It's
truth.
kind of like voting for president in the United States.
Hello.
Oh boy.
Something's fixed.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so
We
then
know where this is going.
I
Yeah.
show up and, sure enough, they give me the host and blank as fuck, I had a close friend, and Kevin took a blank too, and we're looking around, and some of our friends are faking rapture, like, oh, boy.
How did that work?
And we said, fuck that, man. We're going to find where they hid this motherfucker. And
The
that's
God
what happened to
hole.
me.
You were looking for the God hole.
The host, they called it.
Yeah.
I had an arrangement with the host. If I came here and showed up, I could host any fucking time I wanted. Without asking permission from a bunch of clowns,
So
A priori.
So how do you get
Peyote.
nice peyote? I don't really see mescaline around anymore.
You just have to hang out more than a couple days. Give us a break.
Right, okay,
We're still
You should
measuring
have
you up.
you should have put the order in.
You're swimming in it.
All right.
You can't, because it all went legal. They bring me jars of
did?
funny stuff now with the label on the jar top. They can't sell it to you.
But they can give it away. Yeah.
So
That was the first drug I ever did was mescaline
mescaline.
at 12, actually.
That-
It was-
Can't go wrong.
I love
I think
it
I
that
prefer
way.
LSD.
I think I'm
but,
still on it.
We had to read Heaven and Hell, and we had to read Doors of Perception, and then you were allowed your first mescaline.
How old was your first
Well, I was lucky.
psychedelic trip?
I was in Pasadena, and I was on my way to the first prom. And
The first.
and the mescaline came in, and we never made it to the prom. The girls probably still want to kill us, but we were. In
Oh, they
our
weren't on it.
tuxes, and no, we never saw them. We ended up at a hippie party in our tuxes,
They must have loved you.
blasted out of our fucking minds. No, they didn't. They thought we were,
Of course, FBI agent, whatever.
No.
Strippers, hippie male strippers.
This was like
Yeah, just the bow tie.
13, 14 before the teeny bopper word existed. And we weren't teeny boppers for a long time. And then the press got a hold of it. But if you were a minor and you went to the Fillmore, at midnight you had pick of the couches. And the whole walls were lined with the couches, but very few of us youngsters could stay up for the final set.
What was the first show you saw at the Fillmore?
The first show I saw at the Fillmore, I think was, it had to be a Country Joe opening for something like, no, it must have been Hendrix.
Oh, must have been.
because the first show was the opening act. Okay, I see
Because
what
I
you're saying, yeah.
remember, just, Joe was the hardest working band in town, actually. And you couldn't go to a show, Bill Graham being our least favorite show, you couldn't go there without Joe opening. Both times I saw Hendrix, Joe burned a ukulele right before Hendrix came on.
Oh, okay.
And that's how early it was, Hendrix's first show.
First show, yeah.
After Monterey.
yeah.
And Banana, they had borrowed Banana from the Youngbloods, and the fucking guy played and burned a little ukulele right before Hendrix stepped on.
Who from that period? Tell us some other shows that you attended at the Fillmore.
I'll tell you the first show when I went from the tango to psychedelic music, and it
Thank
was at
you.
the Shrine Auditorium, and Jeff Beck had just arrived in the States with this album, Truth.
Was it Rod Stewart fronting that?
That's right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And, it had this incredible piano player, Nicky Hopkins, that he borrowed from the Stones, and then Ronnie Wood was there. And he'd come out, and he'd, with his classical guitar, and he'd play a little bit of Greensleeves, and then I'd go, I ain't superstitious.
Nice.
So that was when I went from Astor Piazzolla to Jeff Beck.
Okay, so it wasn't both.
I
It was
still
a
go
shift.
see Jeff Beck annually because he learns something new every fucking year, and he wants to tune me up.
But he's also known to kind of not go in hiding for a little while. He's a little finicky with the road and all that stuff.
Who wouldn't be? With
Not me,
that
but,
love of grease and automobiles.
Huge car collector. Yes, huge car collector.
And they've got a mechanic. And if you're in a bad situation,
You want Jeff Beck there.
you want a wrench and Jeff Beck.
Did you see Janis Joplin throw down?
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember actually, I think I had a nice sexual encounter on a quilt of hers on your bed one time.
Yeah, that could,
At least that was the word on your street.
No, I remember the night you made it with Karen Finley, and I put you
Wait,
both in the same bed one night.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, what
Same
happened that night?
selection
We
memory.
might have been doing Janice that night.
Was
Karen.
that the memory you have?
I have no memory of that
because
whatsoever.
They didn't know each other, and they wanted to meet, so I booked them both together one night. I kid you not. And that bed upstairs. No memory.
None at all. None at all.
So you blacked out. It was traumatic. You blacked out.
Bobby Beausoleil got paroled.
He did. Is he staying here?
He's going to come by when he gets out. The governor had to sign the final on it. And instead of signing it, he said, give him another year, which to me is just like the governor that was my student at the University of Santa Clara, who took my sculpture class. And, he got the lowest grade I gave, which is a B minus.
Was that
That's because he talked and talked and talked, but didn't make a goddamn thing. And I sat him down at the final review and I told him, hey, Gavin, you can't make art out of excuses.
Nice.
Whoa,
no,
well
you
done.
Can't.
And here he is now.
B minus. And he gives Bobby Beausoleil, after 50 fucking years, he gives him another year because he doesn't want to appear like a putz. What a putz.
Asshole, yeah, exactly. That's an asshole. I always like the grade, the concept of the grade F+, because like not only did you fail, you did a great job fucking doing it.
So where were you? Where were some of your teaching stints at, Mark?
Well, I did a lot of Jesuits at Santa Clara, and that was good. But then I moved into the Christian Brothers at St. Mary's, and that topped it off. But then I did a year of sabbatical replacement at UC Davis, and I retired.
What year did you
Coincidentally,
retire?
it was right as the FBI was arresting me for the first time. Coincidence?
I think not.
Yeah.
What was the first bust for?
The same as the second bust.
The same as the second 100.
To manufacture and distribute LSD 25. But in this case, the first case, it was nothing. It was 10 years for the acid, 2 for the phone, 2 for the mail. I didn't shoot any arresting officer.
Nope. How'd you get off of
I could have done
that?
that on 14 years on my left foot. The last one was 2 consecutive life sentences.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man, I had to come back and give him another one after the first one.
How'd you Teflon your way out of all of that?
You got to really prepare your defense before you commit the crime. And I highly recommend you do that.
This is the Lydia and
Spin. Don't do that.
with Mark McCloud and Tim Dole.
Watch the rules and keep to the rules.
Petty criminals take note.
And only way to get acquitted is to stick to the rules. Even doing that, you got a slim chance of making it because you need all 12 to acquit.
Must have been your winning personality.
No, you use the method that was given to you. And you take acid to choose your jury because you don't need just a fair jury.
You
need the jury that's going to talk their jury into let you go.
This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia and Lunch, Mark McCloud and Tim Dole.
Discerning ability that day, that Monday when you pick the jury. Show up, your pre-trial conditions have ended. You can take any drug you want. That morning, roll a big fatty, chase it with 250 mics, go in there, pick a jury.
Does a lawyer also do this? I mean, because isn't
the lawyer isn't made aware of anything that makes his job more difficult. And you only tell your lawyer how to defend you. You don't tell him any lines that he has to follow up on.
Yeah.
My lawyer was the finest in the world. The only case he couldn't beat was Phil Spector's because Phil got wrongly accused. That wasn't a.
You don't think he actually did that?
Wasn't a murder one. That was a manslaughter and an accident. And instead, they treated it like a murder one. And so then how do you defend yourself? You can't. There was no blowback, no powder on him. She pulled the gun out of his hands and shot it in her mouth. Word.
Oh, well.
And it's like a child flashers in the park for 40 years flashing, and then one day he gets accused of rape. Something's gone wrong here. And he was poorly, because of his dumb Russian driver, he gets accused of an M1 when it's a manslaughter. He pulled the gun on Yoko, on the Ramones, on everybody.
Occasionally, the gun goes
You
off.
can't even find him now. I was one of his only 14 friends, and now you can't even find Phil. They've hidden him in some fucking medical facility in Timbuktu.
Well,
They
I mean,
probably-
don't you think you need to be in a medical facility after being in prison anywhere for anything for a certain amount of time?
no.
No. Okay.
There's always a spoon and a way out.
I wonder how much LSD circulates in the prison culture. I mean, you don't really hear about that so often.
It's the last fucking planet in the whole galaxy that puts living things in cages. Come on.
Yeah, come on. I know. Especially if you, the things they don't want to see.
That's why they won't let us in with the big universal board meeting. And I saw that movie, the Adam Brain, the Japanese one from the 50s. It starts off with a great big board meeting in outer space. It's got the big fucking kahuna in the middle. No one's talking. They're all doing sign language. Got a bunch of, different races there from all over the place. They're all like boogie, 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 boogie. And goes on and on and on and on. Then finally, they're talking about Earth. What the fuck we going to do with these apes down there, And they send this guy, the Adam guy, down to fix things, But they're not even going to let us close to that board fucking meeting till we fix the concentration camp thing.
Yeah, well, I call them concentration camps too. Yeah, they're concentrations of our poor.
Here's the skinny on the mini I got. And I had those Scientologist guys romancing me at one point,
Oh, boy.
trying to get me to come aboard.
When was that?
Oh,
When was
right.
that?
We're talking like 71
okay.
to 73. One of the big guys, the great sculptor from Canada that arranged the stealing of their own FBI files, he enticed me and tried to get me to join. I'd take him swimming every day up at Lake Berryessa because I was making these big giant sculptures. I always needed a little break in the afternoon. He kept telling me that the ancient memory that their dialogues had provided during their interrogations had come up with a thing called genetic memory that got written into 9 stories that were the Star Wars series, And that we were a forgotten concentration camp here. The guards suffering a little bit more from abandonment feelings than the prisoners, The mothership never comes back to resupply anybody. And, hello? And I said, nah, that sounds familiar,
That's why Mark McCloud lives on his own planet, in his own universe, in the Mission District of San Francisco.
The guards suffer from abandonment feeling a little more than the prisoners.
So at what point did the Scientologist crew stop? When did they give up on
When did they realize it was they were?
I told them I'm a scholarship student, and the minute you guys let loose, I'm getting a scholarship.
Nice.
And that's how you get a Scientologist, not just a Scientologist. But it's an old digger method of getting all these guys.
Do you like being scared?
Have you ever been scared?
Yes, I've been super scared, until it ran out.
Yeah, until it ran out, right? I mean, because children love to be scared. And
Yeah, but there is a limited amount of it. Yeah. And you can run out of scared,
Okay.
Get back on it. Well,
you pay greatly to get it sometimes.
Oh, yes, you do.
Yeah.
So being scared, can you run out of laughter?
That's the
No,
only thing you
I
get
don't
to
think
keep.
All right, that's great. That's good news.
The only thing. And I've had to give it up all twice. But then it comes back tenfold, except it never took me laughter away. Only thing. I went to a school where they had physical punishment, And
Did you laugh then?
No. In a way, because my school changed the whole law. And we had a kid in my class called Ronnie Reagan Jr. And we had only one rule where I went to school, and it was, web gentlemen don't lie. When Ronnie lied the second time, because the first time they beat the shit out of him for sneaking his car onto the orange groves, he lied and said, no, and so they had to expel him. When his pa got wind of it, he passed the hazing law. You could no longer hit us in private school.
All right.
that's one good
1971,
thing.
too
One
late
good thing
for
he
me.
did. Yeah, well.
Well, he didn't mind. He didn't mind other people being hit.
Too late for me, but because I was really bad and I didn't mind the SWAT.
How
I
was it
learned
that
how
painful?
to
Was it really painful, or was it just more scary? What?
It makes a loud noise,
Yeah.
and then the guy
What
swatting you
what
would
were you
put
swatted
his
with?
initials with the big flat
Cane?
paddle.
Oh, the flat paddle.
And the guy would
don't
put
mind
his
the flat
initials
paddle.
backwards in the paddle.
Bastards.
And I kept getting it from this guy called Rex Reckabaron, you know?
That's a
so
good
I
name.
looked like a Rolls Royce in the shower room for about like, for like 4 years.
Well, good thing you weren't in
did
prison then, yeah.
I did the 8th grade to senior year there, you know? And I showed up as a junior high man, and then I went on to college from there. The last year, senior year, no one swats yet.
No swatting.
But, they swat the hell out of me because I got my ass. I was about a block away from my ass by the time they hit it. And
Nice.
You had the Rolls Royce of asses, and you're out of there. Right?
not a big deal.
Another swat on the ass.
All right, so okay.
They should bring that back. Bring back the SWATs. Let us all out of prisons, motherfucker. These guys weren't good about it.
Well,
though.
there's a way
Only
to
one
do it.
guy, and it was the Stern Grove guy.
There's a way to do it and a way
heir
not
the
to.
Stern Grove guys, a beautiful family, and I love them. He would drop his paddle before it got to my ass. I remember that, Stern.
All right, so now let's talk about the last 50 years.
Nothing's changed them. You know, my first day in school, the minute the hall monitor saw me, he started chasing me. The minute I saw his face, I knew, where to go.
Away from him.
Immediately disappear.
You're seeing Jeff Beck in the early 70s.
Yeah,
you're
that was
hanging
good.
around. You're hanging around here. You've jumped ship from tango to psychedelic rock, and
You want to know about the music of the Spheres? I know.
And did you have any other musical journeys post psychedelic rock? It seems like you have a pretty
Sure.
vast record collection here. So
Sure. I wanted to hear the music of the Spheres because I'd seen it about 100 times, but I was really visual. I was not that audio. Till I ran into Isaac Hayes one time.
Oh, okay.
And it was Isaac Hayes that taught me the methodology on how to collect the proper instruments to hear the music of the Spheres. Thank you, Isaac.
I think it is.
It was around, I think, Superfly.
Isaac was he a Scientologist for a second?
Isaac?
Yeah.
In the way he puts that stuff together, for sure.
All right. Okay.
What was one of the most devastating, like Fillmore West concerts you saw that just really opened your brain sack?
The first ones you least suspect, and there was this guy called Ian Drury and the Blockheads.
Oh, we know who that
but
is.
let's start back.
Yeah.
Let's go backwards, And when I saw him, it was amazing. But when I saw the Spiders from Mars, they only played here 2 nights. And no one showed up. And that's why he didn't want to come back. But that first night he played, he had like Sylvester opening and Flo and Eddie followed. And then the Spiders, which were just incredible. And that sound was like truly, truly amazing. And it sounded really, really different. But ever since like the first hit, which was Sop with Camel, and they had a hit here. The first San Francisco hit was a band from Nevada City, Sop with Camel with Hello, Hello.
We
1966.
we recently
Let's
talked.
jump back about
We recently talked to Tony Zanetta, who was managing that Spiders from Mars tour.
Oh, that thing was incredible. They had the drummer piled up like 15 feet in the air. And I remember seeing that one guy he had like purple sideburns, about like this long, dripping on his fucking head.
Playing what?
Huh?
What was he playing?
Playing the bass or something.
Trevor Boulder. Bowie was highly influential to me. People don't realize the parallels in our musical schizophrenia, but
We couldn't even fill the dance floor at Winterland. But my brother was there. Me and my brother, we were all dressed up to the max.
what were you wearing?
We were straight dressed because we had gone to a father-son dinner at the Pacific Union Club.
Father-son dinner. Okay.
And then to David Bowie.
And then had to sneak out of there to go to Bowie to see the Bowie show.
Were you into glam rock other than Bowie?
No, not so much. But my
Right.
brother Kelly was real in touch with the English scene, and I only knew the English scene through Peter Kramer, the singer from the Sopwith Camel, who brought the first glitter boots back I'd ever seen. And this when he played for Yorma's senior year at Santa Clara. And he played a show called The Hump Returns, which was the Sopwith Camels.
The Hump Returns.
Yeah, getting over that. But it was the first glitter boots we'd ever seen. And then a few months later, Mount the Hoopled and all that. But, it was that Bowie show that really stood out as far as that, the extreme difference.
And what other shows really stood out, say, in the next 10, 15 years?
Tons of interesting shows, but bands that, you wouldn't even consider
that
now.
Makes sense, yeah.
And, even the Charlatans, the Charlatans. The first band busted in San Francisco for marijuana was the Charlatans, And this right here, you see the first,
See it right
the
there.
seed, And it's called the seed because those are the first evidence of psychedelic posters. And one of them makes this poster to promote this gig they have coming up, and passes it to his friend, the other George on the band, who finds the right date and changes it and doodles over the swastika. And
Did you roll to R. Crumb at all when he was here?
I knew him from grad school
Yep.
because he was always trying to get his girlfriend into Davis, UC Davis.
Okay.
And he was always promoting his girlfriend and trying to get her in there. And finally, one year they let her in, and they, kicked her out the first review.
Okay, all right. Bad girl, I guess.
Yeah, but no, they like to kick one person out. They only let 8 in every year.
And that's just
then
to
they
keep
like to
people-
get one just to keep everybody working.
Oh, okay, all right. It's intimidation tactics.
Well, they were giving you the 3-year MFA and 2, and so they were real demanding.
Were you hanging out with other comic artists around our crowd?
Yeah,
I mean, all the Last Gas
It was
people.
S. Clay Wilson that
Of
I
course,
admired
yeah.
and chased down, and it was S. Clay that at age 17, because that's when I started hanging with him, taught me how not to drink.
What is how not to drink?
Well, he took me to Speckman's, Adler's Museum there on Columbus, and with that Zubroka, he nearly got me arrested that night, and so I really haven't drank since.
Amazing.
And
But I mean, Last
and
Gasp
I
had a
admired him
big.
tremendously, and I'm so sorry to lose our friendship for the miserable alcohol, the worst drug my friends fall to.
Last Gasp, which they released a lot of the early comic art out of San
Yeah.
Francisco,
Right.
which isn't Ron Turner.
And but I see Ron religiously, and
I think
get
Ron
together
Turner
all
was
the
on
time.
the longest rent strike in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I
A real
knew him,
radical. He's released so much. Last Gasp has released an incredible
Yeah, but
amount
he
of
was
books.
always nice to me and always encouraging me. And before he owned that comic book company, he was already astounding me with his memory. And I was a good friend.
I wish he would remember that he owes me some royalties.
That's not hard to remind him.
I'll do
And
that, actually.
I'll do it with you.
Thank you. If need be, I know who to call for backup. So when did really LSD come completely into your life, into the sense that we were sitting here surrounded by?
It's just one tiny aspect of my life,
Yeah.
which is, catalytic.
And again, because it's the minutia, it's like you were, again, saying originally about how into detail and
Yeah, but
small things.
my search comes from a long search, And then when I finally found it, it was devastating.
When was
because-
the first time you did acid?
Well, the first time I did acid was
Going to the prom? No, that was mescaline.
I was lucky. I ended up in Big Sur. And it was about 3 months after my mescaline trip. There was no supporting reading material available at that time. But we went on to try the acid at Big Sur once. And it wasn't on government property, unfortunately. We had broken onto somebody's private land and camped. And the Hells Angels decided to have a party there too that same night. And so we spent most of the night watching them party from across this little meadow. But no one bothered us.
They didn't bother you, no.
They didn't bother us.
Hells Angels don't bother anybody unless they need
to.
to.
Bear.
What? They bothered a bear?
They bothered a large bear.
What do they do?
Maybe
What
a
do they do
large
that
bear
for?
bothered them.
Why? Because it came bothering them.
Hey.
And how do they handle it?
Well, they took it on, and it was like rather dramatic.
Guns or
No, it was like a kind of a knife huddle.
you saw the Hells Angels get into a knife fight with a bear.
On acid, it looked that way.
Maybe not.
And in the morning, we were awakened when we finally passed out, we were awakened shortly after by National Guards there who
They showed up.
waked us up and tell us we're illegal there and get out of there. And as we were leaving the meadow, they were sure to take us by the bear that was missing the paws and the ears.
Oh God! So the Hells Angels won that one, I guess. All right.
Yeah.
They don't lose too much unless the FBI closes it.
They were at just the right mood when the bear came rushing out of the forest at them, and they had already gotten their mojo.
Yeah.
And it was not a problem.
And face it, they outnumbered the bear.
They kind of looked forward to the bear coming out.
Hey, it's just one bear and like 13 Hells Angels.
But let me just tell you one thing clearly. The bear drew first, And I want you to remember that.
Well, it's weird that when people are the magnetism of certain conflicts and just events in general.
Hey, when they draw first, what you gonna do?
I guess castrate it.
This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Mark McCloud, professor, icon, great host.
Mostly a fan of Lydia's.
Well, that's one of the smaller details. I think it was my ass you worshipped at first.
We started with your ass.
Well, doesn't it always?
Do you still appreciate her ass?
I always will, and I'm loyal.
You're loyal and consistent, yeah.
So is my ass. Hasn't changed much, I'm just saying. All right. Where are we taking this now?
You look the same because of the cataracts.
Thanks so much.
Cataracts.
Cataracts.
No, because of the blessed vision I have.
How many times do you think you've actually gone over to the other side of reality where everyone should experience at least once or 100 times in their lifetime?
I know at least that one time I had too many things to correct to ever return to the same one I had come from. So, I had to pick one very close by. In the one close by, I was no longer a doctor. I was suddenly an artist. Much to the dismay of everybody backing me as a doctor. And it's okay. I told them it's not, that they'd get tired of hitting me.
When you come back to this side, I guess, or it's all interconnected at this point. It's not a side.
It's all the same dream. And, unfortunately, Blind Lemon Jefferson wrote this one too. And and then you find out that it was you that wrote it, But as it's served up, we like to dress it in flesh and blood and bone, just for the excitement. And then for credibility's sake, we make it look real dark and difficult. But let me just tell you that where I'm from, piece of cake, huh? Leave it to the professionals.
There you go.
Leave it to the professionals, the professor, the doctor, the teacher.
Constructed so well that we couldn't apply our standards to it, who can't even tell the right time, And so then we don't really have the word to describe how the mechanism is constructed. But let me just tell you that it's so finely done that not even the squirminess of our race will allow for the mistake that'll destroy it.
I love you so much, Mark McCloud. You are absolutely one of the most psychedelic people I've ever met. Drugs or no drugs?
I'm just looking at the evidence and putting all the pretty colors together into finally the meaning I always wanted.
history reveals itself when you can expand your mind enough to forget where you are right now.
But, if it's all, there's all the discussions that this is one big hallucination that we collectively agree upon. And why do we collectively agree upon this hallucination?
Because the only living thing needs a reason to get up and put the sun up tomorrow. And we're trying to add one little spark to the only living thing that has no motive other than what we could bring to it.
Do you think that LSD and your experiences with expansion has opened you more to the generosity of the love I know you have?
I know that as the only living thing, it's been able to dress my hand up more as company. And, it's good to see you again, Lydia.
Did you ever roll Stockhausen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You did.
Little.
For a little while.
Yeah, we had a whole, the German coalition, Roger Hermann, who taught at UCLA for 20, 30 years. And that whole Ulrika Cantor, who herself was very caught up with that. But she had, a Frank Lloyd Wright gallery, and Frank Lloyd Wright had designed it for one of his kids. And then Arsenio was the coke dealer in those days. Arsenio Hall was the gallery's coke dealer.
Wait. Back that up.
What?
Back that up.
This is the old days, And we had, Jamie Curtis was the...
Jamie Lee?
That's right.
Jamie Lee Curtis was what?
Was the, gallery...
Mistress?
And...
Ho?
The bottom
Gallery ho.
Receiving the reception.
Ulrika's bottom hoe. And Ulrika had it wired, Laddie John Dill brings his daughter to one of my openings, and she falls in love with my Flowers of Evil, goes running towards it, and crashes into the pedestal and crashes on her head and puts her in the hospital.
This has been the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and the master of alternate universes, Mark McCloud, a man I have adored since the first time I sat on his throne, and ever since. We could talk as I have to him for days on end and still not know enough. Thank you so much. I love
Likewise.
you. I love you, darling. Don't choke on me.
Interesting article that I read just yesterday that they're doing studies on LSD overdoses. They have these case studies. Yes, it is. Of course it is. You could fucking...
Tusco.
Weasel, just tell what you read.
His name was Tusco, by the way.
Read what you read.
The first being to give his life to the cause was the beautiful elephant Tusco, who gave his life to a doctor overdose of LSD. And they were trying to figure out how much LSD it takes to kill an elephant. And Tusco gave it up for that, but just coincidentally, as it turns out, the autopsy shows that Tusco died from suffocation because he had he's injected a large amount in his derriere, and as it progressed to his lungs, his throat swelled up, and he ends up suffocating as an allergic reaction. And so then that same doctor 20 years later is given another elephant at UC Davis where he puts the LSD in the elephant's food and then has the elephant's best friend hanging out. And the elephant has a great fucking trip.
So wait, UC Davis has test elephants?
Yeah, the LSD on elephants, you betcha.
Weasel, tell
my
him about
alma mater, and that just asks Bucky Fuller what a hollow cow looks like on acid.
Weasel, tell about that study you read, please.
Well, there were a bunch of case studies, and one of the studies was that a girl had she suffered from bipolar disorder, and she didn't know it was LSD that she was snorting, so she snorted about maybe like 5,500 mics of fucking LSD. And basically, it was very extreme. It lasted like 32 hours, but when it was over, her bipolar disorder had been cured.
Well, and also in the study, it talked about 20... No, but hang on. And there's also 20 people like at once had drunk water they didn't know was laced with, and it cured chronic pain, bipolar.
It'll go every which way you want, and that's the real danger of it. Is why it's so hated by those who haven't tried it. Is because
it solves too many problems.
Not only that, but it seems to be the hermetic philosopher's stone. If properly used, you can create shit on a shingle with air.
Let's just talk about Timothy Leary for a minute. Because were you close with Timothy Leary?
Yeah, God rest his tormented soul. Yeah.
What was your experience with him?
Well,
when did you meet him?
I met him not at the end of his life, but in the middle 80s when I was buying some rare blotter in Santa Cruz one day, and I noticed a big stack of his stolen prison notes. And I was able to throw them in on the deal, and then I put them in a large manila envelope, and I sent them to him. He thought they had been stolen from him by the FBI and had written about it. And I just sent it to him, and he immediately, wrote me a big thank you note. But then he flew up and took me to dinner with Yoko the first night I met him, and he immediately became a close friend.
Winona Ryder was his goddaughter?
Yeah, and I was familiar with her because she grew up as the daughter of a dear friend of mine who was Tim's archivist.
Because I had an experience photographing her for the Argentina film, The Heart is Deceitful, and she was telling me some stories. I think, did her family, break Timothy out and take him cross country at one point? Do you know anything about that?
That's what, torments that gang, the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, and Rosemary, the beautiful Rosemary, his wife, who happened to know the Weather Underground. And so then it's the Weather Underground information that the U.S. was really after. And that's why they get tormented. All of those gangs is give me your Weather Underground. Now, if you know the Weather Underground, like I know the Weather Underground.
Do tell.
There's, one of them that's been convicted and made it through, dear friend of mine, who was only the bomber. And he was the bomb maker and making sure he never hurt anybody. And so he did a Nicholas San Quentin. And now he runs, he's always been my, view of a religious leader. And he's, when your beautiful friend Leg had some magical problems.
She did. She saw 50 feet of ectoplasm in this house.
I introduced
under
her.
the wrong kinds of dose, perhaps.
So then I introduced her to my dear friend Nikolai, and she moved in there for a year, and he straightened it all out. But he's a big kahuna at that OTO, which is the Ordo de Templo Orientales, another religious cult that I had to study in boarding school, because each morning in boarding school for 5 years, I had a different religion, never the same religion twice. And after the 5 years of that, you've had enough religion.
To last a lifetime or 10.
Why do you think bad trips happen?
There's no such thing as a bad trip. But, people aren't used to gnarly. Where I'm from, you're used to gnarly. Anything beyond that
It's beautiful.
The 200 centimeters from your eyeball, anything beyond that's gnarly where I'm from. And it looked like the minute I saw people lined up in the country waiting for a bus, I could tell they'd all been dressed at gunpoint and that the clothes fit each other better than it fit them. And I knew where I was right away, and I've been right since I showed up. I knew they called me up at this late time because things were gnarly. And looking at you guys, I know that's the same.
Mark, I've only known fear for 20 seconds of my life.
Well, there you go.
Maybe because I was born used to, or through acid, actually, through LSD. One trip I had where I saw, how can you remember? You can't. All history through a broken film strip. How can you comprehend? You can't. But I think after that, I mean, I didn't have fear before, but I had fear 20 seconds only after that, because once you can expand your consciousness to realize how much we don't see or know, which exists beyond most human comprehension, which is what LSD allows us the ability to access, everything seems okay.
When you end up in trial after, 40 years of being influenced by... See, my only co-defendant was Nick Sand, the guy that had made the Orange Sunshine that affected me the day of my birth and my death and rebirth. And I had tripped 100 times before I took the Orange Sunshine that had my name on it. But to end up in court with him as my only co-defendant 40 years after the incident made the full circle seem very possible, thus leading to my 2 consecutive life sentences.
And that would cause fear in anybody, myself included.
And that completion of the full circle seems to be, looking that way.
Thank you so much, my friend.
I had been in a trial situation with the feds before when they first accused me of manufacturing and distributing. And I knew how gnarly they were and how fictitious of a situation they worked from, And I knew the only way to get them was to study Touch of Evil, like I had done the first trial.
The film?
Uh-huh.
One of my favorites.
And then
Zsa Zsa Gabor as well as Orson Welles.
And I had
and
to
Marlene
restudy The
DJ.
Touch of Evil. See, the first film they had me starring as Cadillac Man, and that was my AKA. Yes, first Texas arrest, Operation Looking Glass, ended up with me as Cadillac Man. I've always had a '69 Tornado, Then the second time I end up is, what was it?
I don't know. What was it?
Snoozosaurus Rex over there.
Peter? Susie Wong.
Susie Wong.
Yeah. And 13 snitches claiming I'm Susie fucking Wong. And, yeah, that's how it was. And the AKA, you get these AKAs, But the second time I was like, how the fuck am I going to beat that one? And I studied that movie. And I saw at least Bill Holden, But Susie Wong. And, how to slip out of that one. What I did is I beat the forensic photos. I studied their forensics so that we could do better. And so my forensic photos were a lot better than theirs. And then about, they get about a week and a half, and then it's yours, So then I had about a week to turn it into an art show. And, they couldn't really remember what the accusation was, since it was 13 snitches that had never met me and claimed I was Susie fucking Wong. And, they played all these tapes and all these things, but no one had ever done an acid deal with me. Then I got to put my witnesses on. I put Carlo on.
Carlo?
McCormick.
Carlo McCormick, one of the most brilliant art critics of this or any century.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
I mean, how fantastic.
You can't really call it Lucifer to defend you.
You call in the angel, Carlo McCormick.
And so we got Carlo. We got the girl I was with at the time of the arrest. She was like this beautiful young apple head out of Georgia, just honest as the driven snow. She never saw no fucking business,
That I would not like to close, but I think we have to. The Lydia and Spin with Tim Dahl. Lydia Lunch.
And the eye, the hand's faster than the eye, Lydia. Always has been.
I hope your hand is faster than my eye, because I might need that later on after the show. Thank you, Mark.
No, thank you, Lydia. So good to see you and your friends around this.